Good morning, everyone. It's 11:12 a.m. It is March 22nd. It is Friday morning. I'm so glad it's Friday for you guys. You guys got so much to look forward to. Hopefully you have something planned tonight that's going to make you happy and enjoy your life. Okay, so I just wanted to come on here and make a video. This is kind of a follow-up from yesterday's video. Yesterday's video is really sloppy. I really wanted to get more organization put into that video because there were some key points that I thought were really important, so I wanted to follow up on that. Also, I had time to think about, the reading, what all this means, backtrack things in my mind, trying to piece things together a little bit more. So I wanted to share that with you in this video. So the first slide that I'm showing is, of course, a picture of Prince Alemehu, who was born, according to Wikipedia, on April 23rd, 1861, and died on November 14th, 1879. Okay. Now, what I was just taking some pictures off the internet so I could put together this video. And if you notice, what little Prince Alemehu is holding in his arm appears to be a baby doll, right? And there's something about it. I'm looking at these pictures and putting things together, dealing with things that are coming to my mind intuitively, and also, along with the tarot reading, which I do hope that you guys will subscribe to me on Patreon, because I am teaching how to read playing cards with, how to read your fortune with playing cards. This is part of how I'm getting information on my past life. So anyway, this particular picture, I'm looking at Prince Alemehu. He is holding a baby doll. I know that Egyptians use things like dolls, vases, whatever. They would actually have respect for certain inanimate objects because they recognize that, this object holds certain energies. I, as a kid, have loved dolls, and I did a video just recently on spirit dolls. This is something that I see as a past life connection. Also, what I've noticed about this issue is that, I believe a part of my persecution that I've dealt with in this life is because I was male in my past lives, and a very effeminate male at that. Obviously, I'm a little boy in this picture, and I'm hanging on to a little girl, little doll or whatever. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with boys who play with dolls or anything like that. But this is typically, I would say, that girls are more interested in dolls than boys. And so, this is just another indication of me, not just the form of animism. Animism is like when you kind of treat things that are considered to be inanimate objects, but treat it like it's actually a person. Like some people, they don't want certain objects to be by themselves. Like, I know this is silly. So like maybe they might have like a paperweight, right? So they'll put another paperweight by it because they don't want the other paperweight to be lonely. As absurd as that sounds, some people just naturally feel like kind of like empathy or sorrow, or they want to show support to things that maybe don't even matter. Like, I remember I felt kind of bad when I threw out my end tables and not the coffee table, because in the back of my mind, in a very strange way, I kept thinking maybe the coffee table might miss the end tables. I know it's ridiculous, okay? But this is where, like, people who have extreme empathy and compassion for people have this sort of attachment to things that are inanimate. If they can have compassion for inanimate objects, how much more are they capable of showing sincere love? Meaning, I even care about how the coffee table feels. Okay, that's what I'm saying, is like, this is a part of my personality. I do believe that my purpose of life on earth is completely spiritual, meaning, like, because all I can feel or connect with is spirituality. I don't have the same animosity, hatred, and what do you call it, bickering, need to bicker, like what most people have, like in that's reflected in humankind. Okay, so of course, because I'm doing all these readings and meditations on the whole past life issues, I'm putting things together as to from this life that I'm living now, why or how does this affect, or why am I dealing with all the pain that I've dealt with in this life, okay? And so this is what I'm getting information from, or this is what I'm getting information. This is the information I'm getting are answers to what I believed happened in my previous life. So today's video is what I'm kind of going over. Okay, so here's the story, and here's what I'm coming up with, okay? These are my assumptions based on my readings, okay? And that includes intuitively, and also by me now, reviving and picking up my playing cards, which I know I had to dust them off and out of my cabinet for a while. I haven't worked with them in a long time, but this is what I'm coming up with. Okay, so let's go back to this. Okay, Prince Elemehu was supposed to have been born in 1861. Okay, as we all know the story where he was, in Ethiopia, there was some sort of issue that he had to battle that his father was dealing with. His father ended up committing suicide. The prince and his mother were taken back on a boat and headed off to England, okay? The prince's mother passed away en route to their destination, so the prince kind of was sort of like screwed, okay? Basically, he ended up living with a person off and on. I believe his name was Captain something. I can't think of the name of it, his name specifically, but he also did have a relationship with people like Queen Victoria and so on and so forth. Okay, he was very fortunate, so that I believe the Queen had arranged him to have an education, so he did get to go to some of the nicer schools that maybe he would not have had the opportunity to go through. So what ended up with happening with him is that, we all know that he, according to these stories that we've read, is that Prince Elemehu passed away when he was 18 years old of some sort of lung infection, right? Okay, so that brings us to 1879. All right, so now what this person, CB, he goes by the initials, CB Braganza. Okay, now what is interesting to me about CB Braganza is that, I will go into how I discovered this particular person a little bit later, but however, I did mention this person's name in my video, my last video. Okay, but I did do some tarot readings, I'm sorry, I'm going to call them playing card readings. I don't want you guys to get confused between what's tarot reading and what's using playing cards, but it's basically the same thing. You're telling a fortune either from the past, present, or the future, or you're just looking into a situation, whatever it is, it's a form of fortune telling, divination, okay, using playing cards. So I had gotten from, based on the reading, that I was coming from the Mediterranean Sea area. Okay, so now, we know that that is exactly where, that's right around Egypt, and across the way, kind of catty corner, we have places like Rome and so on and so forth. Okay, so when we're talking about CB Braganza, okay, also known as the Prince of Mystics, that's what he called himself, I believe, when he got here to the United States. But based on the information that I got in my reading, that it had something to do with the Mediterranean Sea area. Now, we know that the prince biologically comes from Egypt, okay? Because he has a long ancestral line before he was Prince Elemehu, okay? He was actually a deity in ancient Egypt. So that I would say, okay, that was accurate, okay? What got me a little curious about CB Braganza's last name is, like I said in my last video, that is a very unusual name to have for a person of African descent. That is not one of our names. Nothing wrong with the name. I didn't think anything was wrong with the name, okay, except for it makes you wonder how a person got that last name in that time period. Now, nowadays, if I saw a person of color with the last name Baranza, people have intermingled enough, it wouldn't surprise me, okay? But at that time, it just seems like that's a bit odd, okay? But I do believe that perhaps maybe he was not, and when I say he, I'm talking about the prince who assumed the identity of C.B. Baranza. I don't think he had an understanding of how surnames worked. Okay, he may not have understood that, because I don't think he would have chosen a name like that had he understood that. Like if I was somebody who was trying to start my life over and I wanted to make a new identity for myself, okay, I would start thinking, okay, well, what sounds believable? He probably may have known some Baranzas because, like I said, on the left-hand side, around the Mediterranean area, there's people from Portugal. And I suspect that name from being Portuguese when I first read about this CB Braganza person, and that immediately popped in my head. It's like, okay, that's either Portuguese or it's Italian, maybe. Okay, so I looked up the name, and I saw the family crest or the crest of that name, and yes, indeed, it is Portuguese. But I do believe that the Prince of Mystics, as he called himself, did a lot of traveling, okay, as Prince Alamehu, as well as this Prince of Mystics, also known as C.B. Braganza, okay. So he probably traveled, he went to England, he probably hung out in Portugal, probably hung out in Italy. I know that based on the research that I had done about Prince Alamehu, when he was with his captor, who actually took care of him from time to time, okay, he did take him to places like India and stuff. So I would say the prince traveled around, and because he traveled around, he became very open-minded and very eclectic, okay? Like if you look at the picture of him as C.B. Braganza, okay, you'll notice that he's wearing a turban. And if you look at the pictures of Prince Alamehu, he had very, very tight, coily hair. And I do suspect that maybe he, as C.B. Braganza, felt the need to hide his African heritage around people when he got here to the United States. And this is possibly why he wore the turban, to hide the fact that his hair was coily, because it would probably give off, or maybe blow his cover, maybe, you know what I mean? I don't know, but he took advantage of the fact that he had what they call racial ambiguity, because it kind of throws people off, okay? So I think that he kind of used that to his advantage, or at least tried to, okay? Now, he might have been born, okay, there was only 2 articles that I found on C.B. Braganza, okay? And one was basically kind of estimating his time period, okay, of when he was born, okay? It says he might have been born at sometime between 1887 and 1889, or perhaps a decade earlier. People had thought that he was either born in Goa, India, or California, or New Mexico. Now, the reason why they thought that is because he must have been out here in the West for at least a certain period of time in his life. And then reading a little bit about him on another article, they just listed him as being born in New Mexico, whether that was confirmed or not. I don't think that he had too much information with him as he arrived to this country to really, like, he didn't have a lot. Like, I think he basically just kind of came over here with very little information on him. You know what I mean? So, like, when it comes to verifying whether he was born in India, California, or New Mexico, they were not able to do that. And I think that he pretty much just kind of let people believe what they wanted to believe because it was an advantage to him, meaning like it prevented him from having to deal with certain forms of overt racism. Okay, so during this time, from 1890 to 1909, according to the card reading, okay, it appears as though he may have been in America. Now, and then also he was married in a marriage of convenience to my soulmate. I was married to as convenience to my soulmate. Now, as everybody knows, I'm not somebody who believes in marriage of convenience. Why? Because at the end of the day, it ends up in abuse, okay? And I have truly believed this my entire life. I do believe that there was some sort of, I don't know, maybe, like I ended up marrying, I believe, from what I'm understanding based on the cards, okay, I believe that I married into the Howland family, okay? Um, and we were already friends, and I already had a past life connection because I have to go back to my other lives too. I already had a past life connection with my soulmate, and I will start using soulmate regularly in these discussions because I'm tired of saying my adoptive father, blah blah blah. I don't want to say that. My soulmate. He's the only person that I know, according to what I get from intuition, as well as me just recently taking up the cards again. Okay, I don't know any other soulmate, meaning somebody who is constantly with me. So my soulmate and I were married between these particular years, and I felt a sense of severe depression in the relationship. Not because um, I didn't enjoy my soulmate. I felt as though something was abnormal or that it was obstructive in some way. Um, I just never liked the idea of being married. I also felt as though there was too much outside intrusion into the relationship. Like we couldn't just be relaxed and kick back at home. It's like I felt like people were being nosy, being intrusive, that sort of thing. I'm not one of those kind of people, okay? And what's important to understand about me looking into my past life is, I've always felt like in this life that I'm living now, I've always felt like I was running from, abuse. Like I'd get bullied at work and bullied at school or whatever. Um, you know, I realize someone like myself who has the intellectual capacities that I have, this is being honest, okay? This is me being absolutely honest, and please don't take offense to it. I think many people have already come to this conclusion. I have very little patience for the damage that people with lesser intelligence cause in my environment, the destruction that they bring into my lives, and then the way that they normalize it. I absolutely cannot deal with it. And this is my issue. When somebody has the sort of the ability that I do, they're not going to be happy around other people. Okay? Even if that person is your soulmate. Why? Because you like I said, I have, and this is, I know people are going to say, oh, that's just being ignorant. I didn't mean ignorant. That's just being arrogant. This is not me being arrogant. It has nothing to do with arrogance. It is just the fact that when you have someone like myself, okay, like I said, you either dumb down, like why would somebody like me dumb down to the level of something that, according to like what we learn in school and what like certain professionals try to advise, the whole goal in life is to reach a certain point to where you are balanced, okay? And I feel as though living all these lives, I feel as though I'm balanced. And what I'm dealing with, like some people, the reason why people kind of shrug their shoulders and thought it was no big deal that they took up 53 years of this life, and the fact that they could just squash out my plans and they don't care about my feelings is exactly that. It's the fact that, you know, you deal with people who think it's okay to do things that, when you really think about it and explain it, like you took out my life, meaning like most people, people should have decent, memorable, good memories from their childhood. They should have that. Okay, I was denied that. Okay, I was denied having, you know, the ability to go to school without being interrupted, unlike other kids. I always had somebody sitting here causing me problems, harassing me. Nobody deserves that. So this is not me complaining about it. It's just basically me explaining the suffering that I went through in this lifetime, and the fact that someone like me understands the injustice, because on a legal level, I can explain what just happened. Me making these videos proves what just happened. It inconvenienced me. I'm a setback. I'm 53 years old. I have no retirement, on and on and on and on and on and on again. Okay? And the reason why I get upset in the very beginning, and now, only now, people are now starting to see the damage that they caused. But in the beginning, they were enjoying it, having a great time. And the reason why is because I don't have the same standards as the majority of people. Okay, I'm far more farsighted than the majority of people. I knew that this was going to have nothing but bad consequences. And the fact that people don't see things the way that I do, I don't have patience for relationships like that. I don't have a desire to have, you know, relationships where they're so close, and I definitely don't like the idea of marriage. Someone like me, bad idea to get married. Okay, it looks like, you know, that my perps thought it was okay to use people that I love against me, right? They don't see anything wrong with that. They don't uphold what's sacred. They have no concept of it. I do. This is what happened when you put people who have these sort of traits here on earth. Okay? Because I'm not like that. Like my origins are angelic, like to the core. And this is why I'm dealing with, I don't like dealing with having relationships with people, because unfortunately they do not know how to act around me. And I cannot handle it. Like they'll start talking about what they're going to plan on doing, and I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking it's going to be a disaster, and I don't want any part of it, because I already know how things are going to turn out. And a lot of times, I'm not saying people don't have any good ideas or anything like that. It's just that people tend to normalize the destruction that they cause, and then they respond inappropriately, which makes me even more angry. Right? Because like I said, I'm always seeing the bigger picture, whereas they don't. That's why they think it's like they don't understand the damage that they really caused, and they caused a lot of damage. Okay, but that's not the purpose of this video. The video is, the reason why I'm doing past life readings is because I want to understand what exactly happened. Who am I, right? And then exactly what happened in my life to cause all the pain. And this is like, I go through pain. Okay, I go through pain. It is a suffer. You are going to suffer if you are somebody who people look at as superior in intellect and certain abilities. You're going to suffer, and other people tend to make you suffer. You know why? Because they've normalized the damage that they cause. And they don't know how to show the appropriate emotion when they do find out exactly how fucked up they are. To me, what these people did, it's unspeakable. Unspeakable. You know, but like I said, this is not the issue. But the point is that I have a hard time dealing with people, and this is the overall, and I don't want to. And the people that I do, I will carefully select them into my life. And I do have plans, okay? Like I do have plans in the future to do some like mingling and getting a chance to know people. Right now I'm going through a hard time, okay? There's people that I have on my wouldn't it be cool to have a party list. Okay, definitely I would definitely enjoy some time with especially my celebrity soul tribe. I do want to get to know these people, okay? But what I'm saying is, do I want to be with the person day in, day out, night after night, blah, 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 and then being close to me all this time, every day? No, I do not. Because I cannot tolerate it. And I knew this for several reasons. And not just to, and then that's just one of the reasons, okay? The fact that being a person of superior stock and trait, it is very difficult for me to deal with somebody with their little ideas that they come up with their whatever, okay? Whatever, the shit that's not, we're not compatible on that way. Long term, I'm not compatible with anyone. Period. And I must have known this in my past life. And because I felt like I could not show affection to my soulmate in the way that they wanted me to. Like, for example, you know, when it comes to like regular platonic type affections, like giving your friend a hug, you know, that kind of stuff, I'm okay with, okay? But the reason why I don't like sex is because I have been violated by entirely too many people. I feel like, just get away from me. I don't have desire. I don't sit here and think about that. I don't. And it probably was according to my reading, it was like that back in my past life. And people are always going to penalize you when they don't understand what the hell your problem is. This is my problem. This is my problem. It's just, I don't want it to sound like arrogant. The problem with it is I was not saying I was too good for my soulmate, because I love my soulmate. To this very day, I love my father. Like, you know, he was the best person I could, but I believe perhaps maybe outside intrusion got involved in our relationship, and perhaps forced marriage upon us, to where it was no longer just this free-flowing, easy, light conversation and enjoyable type thing. It became something that I looked upon as an obligation, and I just wanted to fuck out of it. And it wasn't something that I wanted to do. Apparently, I must have come here to this country with my marriage partner, which I believe would be my soulmate. And this is probably around that time is when I started feeling like the extreme pressure. The sad part is, like I said, you know, people can choose to get married. I'm not saying I'm against marriage, okay? But I understand the kind of person I am. And apparently in my past life, I showed traits of being, and I hate saying superior, because I'm not trying to get people like, oh, who does she think she is? Because I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to do that, okay? But obviously, I'm not, I don't want to say, oh, I'm so much better than everybody, but you know what it is, okay? The reason why I deal with a lot of harassment, or dealt with a lot of harassment, is because I am a woman of color. I am somebody who had a very bad start, and dealt with a lot of harassment and dealt with a lot of issues, and yet, you know, I'm smarter than a lot of the people who thought that they wanted to like compete against me. Okay, so people like me deal with a lot of the nanny blah blah blah, the eyeball rolling when they come in contact with you, because they feel a little bit challenged by your presence, right? This is just how it is, okay? Now, I did want to talk a little bit about my sexuality. I'm the kind of person who, yeah, I think certain men are handsome? Of course. Of course I do. I think I can recognize beauty, okay? But I'm going to always use my head before I think with my heart. Always. And I probably learned that from years of living, and then I also remember observing other people that I knew, and I knew they struggle with the same issue, okay? You know, it's not important to me. Some people are like, well, what about if you do decide to have a sexual relationship, then I'll have a sexual relationship and I'll be done with it. Or I can continue seeing that person and keeping it light, but I'm never getting married. Not in this life. And I have no desire to. Okay? Because obviously, like I said, I love my dad, okay? Love my dad. I'm going to call him my soulmate because in the past life, the life that I was living at the time, which I believe this person's name was C.B. Braganza, you know, we would have been happier had we not been married. You know what I mean? It just felt like everybody else was taking control. Everybody else's opinion mattered when our relationship could have been much better without other people sticking their goddamn nose in my fucking business. This is the problem with marriage, okay? And I'm not saying, I'm not saying that, like I said, that I'm not saying that I'm against people getting married. I'm just saying is, if you're a person with superior traits, and a lot of people don't have the same traits and qualities and beliefs and standards and whatever, you're either going to have to end up hating yourself to dumb down to their level, or you're just fucking better off alone. So I'm better off alone. It's that way. And like I said, you know, and I understand, like, if you're front up and you say things like, you know what, I understand the kind of person I am. I understand impossible situations. It's an impossible situation for someone like me to get married. Okay? I don't want to get married. But that doesn't mean that I don't find people attractive, appealing, or whatever. But like I said, I've dealt with everybody that I've ever known was in some way, somehow, a manipulator, and you've touched me and you've grossed me the fuck out. I don't need it anymore. I don't care about sex. Not that much. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next slide because I got some explaining to do. Okay, so I really hope that you don't lose track of this because I have to sit here and backtrack and start picking apart who's who in all of this myself, okay? God knows it can get confusing because I'm talking right now, I'm talking about my current life as Maria Gordon, okay? Now, as Maria Gordon, I believed that my grandmother, who is my adoptive father's mother, her name is Louise Howland, okay? She was born in 1910, and they must have been, I'm assuming that C.B. Braganza was here in the United States at that time, okay? They said that, you know, the first recording of him appeared, I believe, in like some sort of directory in Massachusetts around that time. So I do know, what I know about my grandmother is Louise Howland, is that she said, the story of the family goes, is that my grandmother's mother was fairly well off, okay, and that she was kind of playing around, maybe goofing off a little bit too much in a vehicle, okay? And I know big vehicles, I don't know what kind of vehicle it was, but I know vehicles were pretty goddamn heavy back then, okay? And the vehicle fell on top of her. Now, this is a story that I heard from my mother, and I also heard the story repeated by my father, okay? And it was also discussed at the dinner table. So my grandmother, Louise Howland, my soulmate's mother, okay, was born in 1910. I do remember quite well my mother telling me that my grandmother, Louise Howland, grew up in Chicago. Okay, she was I thought that for a while I kept thinking, okay, my grandmother must have been born in Chicago, but I do remember now that my mom said that my grandmother, Louise, went to live in Chicago, and my grandmother, Louise, was raised by her grandmother because Louise's mother, my grandmother's mother, had died in the car accident. Okay, so according to the articles that I read, in 1915, between the years of 1915 and 1917, he appeared in Finchburg, Massachusetts. Okay, he also appeared in Finchburg, Massachusetts between the years of 1924 and 1933. That was the last time he was in Finchburg, Massachusetts. Between the years of 1918 and 1923, I am not exactly sure where he was going, but I do believe that, you know, that Calvin Braganza, I do believe that he traveled a lot, okay? Now, there's a 1930 census that he appeared on, and it says that in the 1930 census, he reportedly had, okay, I'm looking at this really quick and trying to read at the same time. Okay, so he did appear in the census, okay, and it looks like he was well versed in a particular language called Tuscarora. I believe it's a Native American type language. He must have been able to associate himself with those people and probably at some time use that to his advantage to say that he was perhaps Indian, like American Indian or something. He must have used and said that he was several different identities just so that he could get by in life. Not to say, like, you know, racism is bad now. Okay, you can just imagine what it was like back in the day. Okay, so he did what he had to do. So, okay, so let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so in 1933, my soulmate, also known as my adoptive father in this current life, his name is James Calvin Gordon. He was born on December 18th, 1933 in Abbeville, South Carolina. Okay, so based on the card reading and the intuitive messages that I got, at least early this morning, I was doing some deep thinking about this whole issue. And I believe or suspect that C.B. Braganza in 1956 in New Jersey, okay, I believe he was getting tired of the game. Like, he was actually 95 years old at the time of his death, but based on what he has on paper, as C.B. Braganza, his age would be 67 at the time of his death. So why do I say this? Because I suspect Prince Alemayehu never died in 1879. What I think may have happened is that, now I know this sounds really far-fetched and I have to do some deep confirmation meditations myself, okay? But the very first card reading that I got, I'm going to go into it a little bit with you. The very first one, okay? But I am considering the possibility because I'm starting to see that the world really is not exactly the way people suspect that it is, okay? And I am not against the idea that there might be things on this planet, in this world, such as immortals, okay? Like people who live, like just like the prince could fly, you know, Prince Alemayehu could fly. I am wondering, is it possible that perhaps maybe Prince Alemayehu was also C.B. Braganza? Of course, I'm talking about reincarnation, but I'm saying is he was not, C.B. Braganza was not the reincarnation of Prince Alemayehu, because the whole idea of Prince Alemayehu dying at that time was made up. I do not believe that he died at that time. I'm suspecting that he didn't, okay? What I think ended up happening is that for whatever reason, he was getting older, and he was not, based on things that I've read about Prince Alemayehu, it looked as though he had a hard time, you know, fitting in. Like, meaning like, you know, nobody wanted to take him in, which is understandable. Most people, if you needed a place to stay, they're going to find reasons why you can't stay over at their house. Nobody wants to deal with that, okay? So I suspect that he did some traveling, you know, after he got to be 18 years old, or yeah, when he was around 18 years old, when they said he died. Now this is just a speculation, okay? This is just a speculation. He traveled, and he went to India, went to places like Italy, maybe even went back to Egypt for a little bit, maybe bounced around over in Portugal and pretended that he was going to adapt a Portuguese name, okay? He got his experiences from all over the world, okay? He became somebody who was just kind of, you know, cultured in his own way, all right? But the reason why they might have made up a reason to say why, or create doubt in people's mind to think that he died in 1879, but in fact he actually lived on and just traveled and left that place that he was probably centralized in England. He probably branched out and went to different places. This is what I'm thinking, okay? And like I said, I still need to do more readings on it, but I believe that because the card reading that I got, which I'm going to go into in just a minute, kind of did something weird, okay? And I'll explain that in the next slide. But I believe that the Prince Alamehu was a magical prince. Like I said, I even second guessed myself when I read or got the intuitive message before that the prince can fly. I kept thinking, okay, no, that's got to be like astrally. Then I got a confirmation that yes, in fact, he could fly. He may have been one of these extraordinary individuals, you know what I mean? So odd, so different, and he wanted to start his life over, but possibly could not continue living his life in England. So he traveled in like surrounding areas like Germany, maybe went here and there and whatever in that time period, okay? So anyway, I'm going to come back and explain the reading. So let me just repeat this one time, okay? According to what all the information says is that C.B. Braganza, at the age of, in 1956, died in New Jersey, okay? Okay, fine. Okay, so if he was Prince Alamehu, okay, just pretending to take on these identities so that he could live in a new country and maybe start over. Like I said, he may not have understood at the time how surnames work, because I'll tell you what, I would never take on the name Braganza. No way, okay, and try to get away with it. But he probably did that, okay? So this is what I suspect, okay, that Prince Alamehu never died. That was all made up so that he could somehow, you know, escape or do whatever he wanted to do. This is what I'm thinking. So he came to America eventually and died at the age of 95. And the reason why he died at the age of 95 is what I believe, that he died wanting to escape the life that he was living. I don't believe that he was happy at the time of his death, okay? Mind you, he must have been very, very... I'm the kind of person who likes being alone, but he must have felt like he just did not want to be around anymore. And I believe that the reason why, I believe he committed suicide at the age of 95, but on paper it would say that he was 67 years old. I had noticed in the first article that I was reading is they did estimate his birth date, and they did suggest that perhaps maybe he could be 10 years younger. Okay, everybody in this life notices that I look a lot younger than 53 years old, okay? I'm not saying that I am an immortal, okay? But I do say that some of that longevity type of energy, some of that sort of, I don't know, DNA or whatever is still kind of in me. But also, you have to remember, most African American people, most people of African descent do not age as fast as, like, you know, our other counterparts. So, you know, there's a lot of things to consider on this, but I do believe that Prince Alamehu, or there's a possibility, I don't like to sound overconfident, but I do think that there's a possibility that Prince Alamehu left England, did some traveling, eventually came here. He came here married, or either married here or he got married in England to someone or whatever and then moved over here or met somebody while they were here. But the Howlands were, I believe, with him in England. Even if it was like sporadically or whatever, I do believe that they socialized, but he did marry into this family. Okay, so let me come back. I'll come back next on the next slide with the reading as I wanted to demonstrate for you. Okay, so here's the reading that I did to determine how I died. Now, sometimes not tarot cards, sometimes reading cards, you could do readings that don't necessarily have a lot to do with the actual appearance of the card. Like you might draw a jack, like in this case I drew a jack, but I'm not looking at it as a jack. It counts as the number 10. We are only paying attention to the value, the number value of the card, okay? We don't care if it's a club, we don't care if it's a heart, we don't care if it's an ace or whatever. All we do care about is the number. In this case, like each number represents what it's supposed to. If you get a king, if you get a queen, if you get a jack, then those are considered 10. To determine your cause of death, okay, what you do is you draw 3 cards and you add the first 2 and then you subtract the last one. I drew the 2 of clubs, the 4 of hearts, and the last card I drew was a jack of clubs. So to add that up is 2 plus 4 subtract 10. I get a negative number. Now I only have 3 interpretations for what happens. If you get the numbers, if you get anywhere from 2 to 8, if you look on the left hand side, it's got the interpretations. From 2 to 8, that's going to be natural causes. If you get 9 through 13, that's going to be an accidental death. If you get a 14 through 20, that means you were probably murdered. In this case, mine cards totaled up to a -4. Okay, so that kind of got me a little puzzled because obviously there is no option for a negative number. So I did the logical thing. I went ahead and did another reading. So I pulled a 5 of diamond. Well, it doesn't matter if it's a diamond, and it doesn't matter if it's a spade. It doesn't matter what it is. We're only looking at the number. So I added up the 5. I added up the 4. I subtracted the 3. I came out with a number 6, which under the interpretations, which means I died under natural causes. Something about that made me think. Now, when I did that reading about how I died, I did that on the 21st, okay? But, I'm thinking about the timelines in this part of my life. It's really important that I understand my past lives, because the issues that go on in your past life affect your current life, okay? This is one of the reasons why, I talk about when you learn something, when you become aware of something, why it's important to correct your path, right? Okay, so I started thinking, okay, I understand in this life, I find life miserable. Like I have to sit here and try to enjoy the most simplest things. I do not enjoy, what I had to deal with. I don't enjoy being bullied. I don't enjoy, even worse, I don't enjoy being around people who don't have the intellectual capabilities to understand that they have bullying behaviors, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is what makes me think about this particular reading. This particular reading, the very fact that the cards will tell you bizarre stuff, okay, and you have to figure it out, okay. I had mentioned in my reading yesterday that when I was inquiring about my sexuality, I had pulled the Joker card, okay, in my past life, okay. Obviously, if I designate, and I didn't realize that, it's a long story, but the point is that in this particular reading of how I died, okay, the first reading of the -4 made me suspicious, and then the second one made me suspicious because of natural causes. This sounds bizarre. Please do not take it the wrong way. in some ways, suicide is a natural cause. So in conclusion, I believe that Prince Alamehu left England, assumed a new identity, got married either over there or over here, became a part of the, tried to assimilate. Okay, in order for him to assimilate, he had to hide certain aspects of his personality, meaning, we know how racism was back in the 1800s, especially in the United States. Okay, so in order for him to, he's going to deal with racism, but in order for him to soften the blow, sometimes if he could get away with it, if somebody thought he was a Hindu, I guess it really didn't hurt him. It probably only helped him. Okay, he obviously avoided things like conversations relating to race. Okay, he obviously traveled a lot. He was very, whatever environment that he got into, it seems like he kind of studied the people so that if he could get away with it, he could try to kind of fit in a little bit. They had mentioned in the article that he had learned to speak a Native American type language. He did what he had to do, okay? But I do believe, and I get the feeling based off this particular reading and the way that I feel, okay, about it, looking at the negative number 4 tells me that possibly, okay, that the reason why I suspect that he is Prince Alamehu was an immortal is because of his bloodline. The fact that he is a magical creature, and this is one of the reasons why he was captured. Okay, he possibly, I suspect, because of the negative 4, for whatever reason, pops in my mind that he was immortal. He came to the realization, here's the theory, okay, that he came to the realization that he was immortal. He was already 95 based on the birthday of Prince Alamehu, which would be 1861. In 1956, that would make him 95 years old. Okay, mind you, he looked pretty young looking. Okay, that's the only picture that I have of the prince. I mean, he, at the time while he was in the United States, he was going by the Prince of Mystics. Okay, but in 1956, he would have been 95 years old. Okay, if he was indeed, the person, they were two separate people, and he was C.B. Baranza, meaning like he died, he really did die as Prince Alamehu, and then suddenly somehow popped up somehow as as the Prince of Mystics, C.B. Baranza, right? If he did, then what was I trying to go up with all of this about his past life? Then they would be two separate people, but I don't believe they're two separate people. I believe they are the same person, not just in reincarnation terms, but I believe Prince Alamehu possibly didn't die. He just relocated, and they wanted to create some sort of story about what happened to the prince, okay? So it was just better to make it up that he died. He actually came here to the United States, is what I'm saying. And I believe that he committed suicide because he realized that he was an immortal, and his life was not happy. He was not happy being who, not so much that he didn't like being who he was miserable. Like he literally could not find happiness. And so, especially under the situation that he was in. Now, I do believe that he struggled because at the time, his soulmate was no longer alive, okay? I see that, okay? Apparently, his soulmate died a while ago. I'm going to get a little bit more into that later. So, let me see here. Yeah, I'm going to go on to the next slide. Okay, so I'm making this little basic spreadsheet. I'm trying to keep track of all of it. And believe me, like I said, to me, this is like so much to sort through in my mind, like the who's who, okay? And it's really important that you guys let me know what you guys think of this, because to me, this whole thing blows my mind. Okay, so where was I? In the last slide, I was talking about what made me assume or believe that C.B. Baranza committed suicide. I was going into believing or suspecting that he was tired of you know, not being able to explain why he was not aging and living like everyone else among him. At this time, now, if you look at this graph here, from 1890 to 1909, this is the estimation of the time period that I believe, okay? Now, mind you, I have not confirmed with the cards exactly what time they arrived in the United States, but I'm just kind of giving an overview based on what I'm thinking, okay? Now, I believe that he was married, he had a marriage of convenience to his soulmate, right? I do believe that I really did love my soulmate. Like I said, I believe the institution of marriage was bad for us because people were sticking their nose where it didn't belong, okay? Which caused unnecessary friction and stress into the home life. Okay, otherwise, I really do, just based on how I remember my father growing up in this life, spending time with him, he was an amazing person to spend time with. So anyway, so 1890 through 1909, I had a marriage of convenience to my soulmate, constant travel, and we arrived sometime around that time period in America. Now, the numbers on the bottom, those have two meanings, okay? One for the age of Prince Alamehu, what age Prince Alamehu would be in the latest year to the right. So in this case, we call him 1890 through 1909. What year, how old would Prince Alamehu be in 1909? Okay, if of course he lived, okay? He would have been 48 years old. If this C.B. Baranza person, okay, taking the date of the C.B. Baranza person, which is estimated that his birth was 1889, he would be 20 years old. Okay, so there's like an 18-year gap difference of these two individuals. Okay, so now going back to 1910, this is where I'm starting to see something. Now, as we know, Louise Howland was born in 1910. At that time, Prince Alamehu would be 49 years old. The Prince of Mystics, which is C.B. Baranza, would be 21 years old. This is what I'm suspecting, you guys, and I think it's pretty mind-blowing. I believe that my soulmate, okay, was the person who ended up dying in the automobile accident, okay? And then this is the reason why Louise had to go and live with her grandmother, okay? So she ended up living with her grandmother sometime, okay, Louise was born in 1910. That doesn't mean that she went to go live with her right away. I do notice that there's some tracking of where C.B. Baranza was. Now, I know that Louise ended up living with her grandmother in Chicago. I don't know exactly where Louise Howland was born, okay? But there's confirmation of him being in the phone book, the directory, and in public records in 1915 through 1917 in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. And then he pops up again in 1924 through the 1933 area. Between 1918 and 1923, there is no real confirmation as to where he was at that time. But he's lived in Fitchburg, Massachusetts 2 times, and those are the 2 time frames that he's lived in. So I'm assuming that between 1928 and 1923, there was some sort of special arrangement for him. At that time, I was Louise Howland's biological father. Wild, okay? I know. So Louise Howland is my daughter. She is not my grandmother. She is my daughter. What a trip. What a trip. Like, you know, you have this person who's new to the family, me, when I first came into the Gordon family. And I'm older than my ancestors. Crazy. I know. Okay, coming back with the next slide. Okay, so going back to this chart here, I had to make it a little bit bigger because, this is more for my personal records, but I'm just sharing with you. Okay, so for 1924 through 1933, we see that there was a second time where he appeared in this Fitchburg, Massachusetts, okay? At that time, he would have been, let me see how old he would have been. 72 years old. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why those two columns match in numbers. If you notice, there's like 1924 through 1933, and then there's a block that shows 1933. Okay, so then if Prince Alemayehu, which I suspect, okay, that Prince Alemayehu never died, he came here to the United States, and I was married to, gosh, this is so weird. Okay, I was married to this person by the name of in the Howling clan, who is my soulmate, which is my father, right? Which I know him as my father, the man that I adored all my life growing up. In my current life, boy, this is crazy. Okay, so I was married to my soulmate. At the time, he was my wife. My wife gave birth to Louise Howland, okay, in 1910, okay. My soul, sorry, how can I say this? Okay, so my wife died in the car accident, okay. She died in the car accident, resulting in Louise having to go live with her grandmother. So and here's the thing, this is what surprises me so much, because it's like, okay, I was still alive. There's got to be a reason why I did not raise Louise myself. I don't know what the reason was. It could have something to do with my religious views or something like that. People are always getting involved in your business or something. But whatever the case is, I believe that this is the case because my father, well, sorry, James Calvin Gordon, who was born in 1933, he was given the name Calvin. Also, the last time that C.B. Braganza appeared in any of the public notifications and the phone book in Fitchburg, Massachusetts was in 1933. So they might probably moved because of having the addition to the family is what I'm assuming. Okay, so now in 1956, he would be 95 years old as Prince Alemayehu, okay? If he really was this C.B. Braganza who, actually had the birth date of 1889, then he would be 67 years old, okay? Either way, he ended up dying in the year of 1956. Based on the card reading that I got and my intuitive interpretation of it, I believe he committed suicide. I think it was just getting too difficult for him. The way that he was living his life, it was hard because how in the world do you stop growing old? And then also, how do you deal with the people that are around you? I mean, I honestly cannot stand living in environments where I don't get along with them. So I must have found dissatisfaction. Also, I think it's important for me to touch on the fact that I know that in the past, my two past lives, and I'm not going to consider my past life. Actually, how can I say two past lives? I believe Prince Alemayehu and C.B. Braganza are one and the same person. Even if we're talking about reincarnation, where Prince Alemayehu passed away and came back as C.B. Braganza, I'm counting them as one whole thing, because in my mind, I don't believe Prince Alemayehu died in 1879. Prince Alemayehu took his own life I suspect, okay, in 1956, because he was just tired of fucking living. And also, I do know that my last readings, I was talking about how Prince Alamehu had a very effeminate look to him, okay? He liked being a female. He was more comfortable being a female, and that was probably another contributing factor that I think played into it. I don't believe his sexuality played the biggest role in it, but for him at least. But I do believe that he just felt unhappy living around people who did not know how to respect boundaries. He felt like if he had to continue living like this sort of life forever, for all eternity, being around what he considered to be hell, it was just too much for him. So he ended his life. This could be one of the reasons why he came back, because he maybe understood that he had the I'm talking as if I'm not the same person, but I am the same person. I may have come back as a woman, hoping to get another chance at life in the way that I would prefer it to be. Meaning, I probably didn't like being a woman, but unfortunately I ran into the same problems. I have people, who were trying to force me into situations that they don't understand. And it's because they don't understand these sort of issues because they don't have the intellectual abilities to. So somebody has to explain it. So I'm one of those people who pretty much exist kind of to teach mankind what they don't know. Okay? So this sort of stuff, the reason why it's written into law is because it is extremely abusive. I must have felt it intensely because I've experienced it in past lives. Okay? I don't like mixing up legalities and stuff like that with family, with people that I care about. Because the minute you do, guess what? It's no longer based on a true, sincere, deep emotional feeling. This is me. It's my preference. It's my choice. I know what the ending result is. It's not good. So I know what's best for me. So I really do appreciate it when people stay out of my business. Want to be friends with me? Respect my space. Respect boundaries. Okay, because I can't tolerate it. I literally have zero tolerance for it. Yes, of course, I do want to reach out to certain people, and I will in the future. But like I said, I have standards, and I'm not the kind of person who can put up with something over and over and over again. And when people don't respect my boundaries, that's when I sever ties. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so adamant about it. Because people can literally drive you to that point. And I do believe that, much like my father, I'm referring to the emperor, that I took my life in 1956, pretending to be C.B. Baranza when I was indeed Prince Alamehu. Okay, to sum it all up, that story about my grandmother dying in a car accident, not my grandmother, but my great-grandmother dying in a car accident, and my grandmother Louise having to live with her grandmother was a little embellished. I suspect, okay, that was my soulmate who died in the car. That they were talking about me living in the United States, married to my soulmate. Now, I don't know what my soulmate's name is at the time. I suspect there was an article saying that he got into some sort of run-in with a person by the name of Kelly. That might have been her name. I don't know. But it looks as though my soulmate died in a car accident. This is the reason why Louise had to go live with her grandmother. The cards indicated that I had a good relationship with my soulmate, but the marriage, we didn't like it. We didn't like being married. And I don't believe that my soulmate liked being married either. I don't think we only did it because it was convenient. Meaning, it made things easier to survive. We both resented it. It caused us great pain, and we just absolutely hated it. Also, Louise Howland, the baby that was born, is actually not all my year life. I grew up believing that this woman was my grandmother. No, if you look at it biologically, okay, biologically, Louise Howland is actually my daughter, because the woman who died in the car accident was actually my soulmate, which was her mother. So in this case, I gave birth. No, I didn't give birth, okay, because I was the man in this case. But my soulmate, my father, who was my soulmate, gave birth to my daughter, Louise Howland. Okay, so now I suspect that Prince Alamehu never died, but came to America for a fresh start and assumed this ridiculous identity as Calvin Berganza, which I think is kind of funny. Okay, but anyway, because I now that I'm older, I'm looking back and I'm like, I would not have done that. I am the same person, but I don't think at that time I knew any better. I should have paid closer attention to things like surnames. Okay, now, James Calvin Gordon, the man who raised me, is actually my grandson. Mind blowing. And soulmate reincarnated. So he is the man who my father, who died in the car accident, came back through Louise Howland, and he raised me. But he is actually, when you look at this whole situation, being the fact that I am actually Prince Alamehu and C.B. Braganza, James Calvin Gordon is actually my grandson, which would make my horrible adoptive siblings my great-grandchildren. And I have no interest in associating with them. This shit is mind-blowing. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to wrap this video up shortly. So basically what I found out is the past life readings that I've gotten is telling me that, yes, I did discover another life in a way, because Prince Alamehu, by leaving England, was starting a new life. He wanted to make a new life for himself and being different than who he was as Prince Alamehu. But it's not actually another life. Prince Alamehu is indeed what I believe, okay? C.B. Braganza, okay? He never died at that time in 1887. That was a made-up fictitious story so that he can make the transition from where he was to this country. Prince Alamehu struggled a lot. Probably not just in England, but the places that he visited, he probably did find a little bit of relief about embellishing his racial background, only so that he could get along and survive. Okay, so I'm going to put their pictures side by side, which I believe is the same person. Please let me know what you think in the description box. I personally, the more I think about it, I tend to agree with what I got from my reading. I do believe that this is what happened, that Prince Alamehu was indeed here in the United States, and that this is the story that we're dealing with. And I am being targeted because I was fairly successful as an occultist in my past life. I mean, yeah, my past life, okay? Unfortunately, like I said, I actually thought that, because I know that I have over 80 past lives, and I was kind of hoping and kind of glad when I came to this discovery about the C.B. Braganza person, because I wanted to be able to write in my book, I discovered another life. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to say that, because all I discovered is that Prince Alamehu started a new life in the United States, and it has nothing to do with actually an actual real life to where my soul transferred into another body. Prince Alamehu and Braganza are the same person. Let me see if there's any other messages I wanted to go through really quick before I wrap this up. I think that's it. Let me see. I do have one more card here. Okay, I don't think that I'm offending anybody by coming up to these conclusions. It's just, like I said, it's really important for me to spend the rest of my life pursuing spiritual interest, and I dealt with like so much unspeakable abuse through both lives, okay? I feel as though what I dealt with in my past life, I had to deal with in my current life, and this is part of the reasons why I'm in the situation that I'm in right now. Yeah, very unhappy with the situation. I feel as though I'm right to feel weary about, developing relationships or keeping people at a certain distance. I am somebody who's going to set boundaries, okay? I'm well aware of human nature. I'm well aware of how people can start becoming a little too grabby, not respecting boundaries. I don't wish people any harm, but overall, I understand what people do, and it's very hard for me to like people knowing what they cause. Okay, like you would think that all the pain that I experienced, people would feel some sort of sympathy and want to reach out and show that to me in some way. Okay, I only look at people as evil. That's all. I don't see them as any other way until they come out and prove it. Okay, so and I have too many experiences to ignore that. So, I just am somebody who's just trying to get through this life, make sure that I have positive marks in the book of heaven or whatever. Trying to do things, good in a sense where, I'm pursuing my spiritual life and putting that in the forefront of everything. I do not appreciate people who want to come into my life and show me their way of doing it and try to force me into it. Apparently, I had enough of that in my last life, okay? And this life that I've dealt with, the current one, like I said, the 52 years of constantly running, wondering what the hell's going on with me, feeling sad and depressed, dealing with irate people, all of it. Okay, I've had enough of it. So I've learned my lesson from my past life. My past life is that I accept myself for who I am. I'm not somebody who sees the benefit in trying to make something work when I know good and well it could never. Okay, I make good decisions for myself, and I see that. My goals and my purpose in life is to recognize my self-worth, meaning understanding who I am and making sure that I don't deal with people who do not uh, harmonize with my goals. Meaning, like I can be high and by friends with you, like, hey, how you doing? But I understand I am never going to say that I was responsible for allowing people to abuse me. I will not let people abuse me. And if I recognize that I can say something about it, I'm going to do that. Apparently, I have never had anyone in my life that I valued. Okay, now I don't know what is the deal with, I'm trying to get information, and perhaps later on I'll do some readings on it. I'm concerned about myself because, I know myself to be somebody who raised a child all by themselves. Okay, what I mean by that is, like, I had in this life, I had a child out of wedlock, and I took full on responsibility for it. In my past life as CB Braganza, okay, I know that Louise left to live with her grandmother because of her mother passing away. And I didn't die until 1956. So what my concern is why didn't she live with me? Because I believe, based on my reading, I gave birth to Louise. So I was her father. So I think perhaps maybe because I dealt with a lot of outside intrusion, people being nosy, I may not have been, I'm just trying to figure it out right now. I will confirm the readings later. I personally believe that I was not able to raise my own child because of religious issues. I'm the kind of person in my heart usually want to take responsibility. Like, I took responsibility for my son in this life, okay? I don't understand. I'm suspecting that I was prevented from raising my daughter, Louise, because of religious issues, okay? This is what I'm suspecting. I will confirm later. I'm going to go ahead and put these two pictures side by side. Prince Alamehu, I did that yesterday. Prince Alamehu and CB Brazen Braganza, which I think is so funny. And I'm going to let you guys decide. I personally think they look a lot alike, and I can see the resemblance, and even in my current life. So, we are who we are. And I do appreciate all the people who do support me, and I do hope that you will support me on Patreon. I have not checked my account yet. I'm going to be doing that later on this week. I have like 2 more videos to finish up, and then I'm going to be doing some posting hopefully on Patreon. I want this to work out. I have suffered tremendously for something I did not deserve. I hope that people will see the benefit in using playing cards or tarot cards or finding some form of divination. I certainly feel as though it provides good information, or why should I say this? What I mean by that is I believe if people don't naturally have strong psychic gifts, like there's a lot of people who don't like me, they don't get messages, okay? So one thing which they can do is they can make use of things like divination, because what happens is a small amount of intuition that you do have works alongside with the cards, okay, or the dice, or the runes, or there's so many different forms of divination. But whatever the case is, I hope you guys will support me on Patreon. All the information is in the description box. I will check my Patreon account probably this weekend, and I will let you guys know what's going on. Thank you so much for your support. I hope you all have a great week. Bye-bye. Well, actually, a great weekend, because tonight's Friday. Take care. Hey, just when you thought you were getting rid of me, I decided to come on here and add this little additional part for the video as I'm done once I'm working on my editing. So I was looking at my video, reviewing it, everything, and something else came to mind. I asked a question earlier. I was wondering why I didn't myself raise raise my daughter Louise Howland, okay? And I did suspect that the reason why is because I've always been targeted for my religious views. But as I was editing these slides, I realized, I had put the ages of what Prince Alamehu would be each year that he was alive. So in 1910, when Louise was born, okay, according to this, which I suspect was Prince Alamehu pretending to be a C.B. Baranza, okay, he was actually 49 years old, okay. Now, why I am concerned about this is because a lot of people do, like myself, I have always been this way. I'm the kind of person, I'm very farsighted, okay. I suspect, number one, that what prevented him from raising Louise on his own, why didn't he raise his daughter, is number one, probably because of outside people, the religious issue. People back in those days were outright paranoid. They didn't want to hear what your explanation was. It was like, you either do it our way or it's the highway or whatever. So chances are people didn't want me to raise my own child because of the religious issue. The other issue could be because of the fact that me being an immortal, okay, I may have felt, I suspect that I was an immortal in my previous life. And I kind of want to elaborate on this. I know this is crazy, but this is a lot to piece together. I'm like piecing together who my child was and all this other stuff. So please bear with me, okay? And plus, the reason why I want to make sure this is accurate, my suspicions and what I'm coming up with is as accurate as possible, is because this is a part of my life's work. I know that I'm focused a lot on the Swan Song Manifesto, but I also value what I do on YouTube, especially this part of my life, dealing with doing readings and stuff like that, trying to piece things together. This is very important. I also was concerned, I think that I was concerned about raising my own child because I was immortal and because I was being worn down because of people wondering, okay, well, how is it that you are 49 years old and you still look young? How is it that because this must have been a problem. I do believe that the prince was indeed immortal. Okay, so when I'm looking at this graph in 1956, when he did die, yeah, he was 95 years old, if we are talking about Prince Alamehu. So, like I said, I do believe that Prince Alamehu committed suicide, and also because he didn't want to go on and on and on and on the way that he was. And then at that time, my soulmate, also known as James Gordon, who is actually my grandson when you really think about it, decided to go ahead and bring me back through the cloning process. So yeah, this is really interesting, and I'm starting to think about it, but it's just like, I really felt like it was important for me to try to piece this together as close as I possibly can. There are some intuitive messages that I did write down. I want to make sure I don't forget them, because I'm really going to be focused on this weekend. I'm working up on finishing my videos. I wanted to share this with you guys. Hang on one second. Okay, that's gonna wrap up my past life research, at least until next week, until I finish um, both of my videos that I'm working on so I can post for Patreon. I'm trying to space things out. I will tell you, the past lives digging was just like really getting to me. Like I couldn't rest or focus on anything else because I really wanted to focus on my content, but something about my past life, exploring this issue, was just drawing my attention too much. Okay. Um, I did get a psychic vision this morning, and I was going to wait till maybe this weekend to release this vision, because it sounds, you know me, even though I could be dead accurate, and I usually am, but I'm like, my life seems so over the top fantastic sometimes. Just like when I found out that my soulmate came from Tut's line. When I found out that I had Cleopatra blood in me. When I found out that I was a clone. When I found out that I was an Egyptian. When I found out I was married to Tut. When I found out all the things, okay, that go on in my life, it seems cool to some people, but it's also so surreal that I kind of get taken aback by it. But I did get a message about when I was meditating, is that in my past life as CB, okay, also I must have made quite a stir, I guess, in England, because the name Aleister Crowley keeps swirling around in my mind. I believe in my past life I inspired Aleister Crowley. Now, I do understand that I am an occultist, and also he is an occultist. And when people think of Aleister Crowley in today's age, okay, because there was a time, if you had any interest in the occult, no matter whether it was what they call light or dark magic, you were just considered off the charts. Now, I know that Aleister Crowley seemed to be very vocal about his opposition to things like religion, whereas I don't believe I ever have. It just does not seem like I'm like that. But Aleister Crowley was born Edward Alexander Crowley on October 12th, 1875. He was born a few years before the um, Alimehu died, okay? He was considered to be an occultist. Aleister Crowley was considered to be an occultist, a philosopher, just like me. And he also liked poetry. He did painting. He was an also novelist. But I keep getting the feeling, because Aleister Crowley died in 1947, okay? And apparently I have always been known for dabbling in the occult. I must have been a big name in certain areas, okay? Aleister Crowley, according to what I'm getting intuitively, and I don't like to feed myself bullshit just to believe it, okay? I inspired Aleister Crowley for a lot of his work. Now, like I said, Aleister Crowley was, I wouldn't say he was all dark, but he did some things that I personally wouldn't do, okay? But still, Aleister Crowley is a big name when it comes to talking about the occult, okay? He is definitely floating in my mind. I guess all I can say is that there's a lot to be explored when it comes to past life, and I will be doing readings on to confirm the accuracy, which I'm pretty sure I'm right. Okay, I'm pretty sure I will, but I will let you know about that. I am going to wrap this video up because, like I said, I've been digging into the past life thing for a little bit too much. I have deadlines for myself, and I want to make sure that I meet them. But I really would appreciate you guys helping me out, watching me on Patreon, learning this skill of divination yourself. And I do want to support the people that take me already and support me already. I'm going to wrap up this video. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I'll be back with another video sometime later. Take care. This time I'm signing off for real. Okay. Bye-bye.